Nice tattoo. Did you get it at Comic-Con? The laughter echoed through the hangar. Someone even snapped a photo behind her back. They called her a poser, a fangirl in uniform. But then a general stopped. He turned around and walked straight toward her without saying a word. He grabbed her wrist, studied the lines, then whispered, "Sector Delta 42. That was your drone? And in front of everyone." He saluted her, because hidden in that tattoo was a flight log no one ever saw. A code, a mission, a rescue. You're watching Veteran Biker. Let's check in. 1 for first-time viewer, 2 if you've seen a few, 3 if you never miss. And if you're ready for a story where silence speaks louder than medals, don't forget to like and subscribe before we begin. The morning unfurled with a sharp, almost surgical clarity. The sunlight, stark and unyielding, slicing through the immense glass panes of the training hangar. It cast long, dancing shadows across the impeccably polished concrete floor, illuminating countless dust motes that swirled like miniature galaxies in the crisp, cool air. Each particle seemed to catch the light, a silent, almost ethereal testament to the constant motion and unseen activity within these vast, echoing walls. The air, despite the vastness, was thick with the scent of ozone lubricants and the faint, metallic tang of raw power. Kara Lin, a young drone technician, moved through this sprawling space with a quiet, almost understated grace, her movements precise, economical, each step a reflection of a mind meticulously trained in the delicate calibration of optical sensors, the intricate maintenance of miniature rotors, and the complex silent language of circuit boards. Her world was one of absolute precision, of fractions of millimeters and microvolts, of seamless data streams and flawless execution. She found solace in the cold, logical perfection of machines, a stark contrast to the often unpredictable, messy complexities of human interaction. Yet, despite her quiet demeanor and her preference for the background, there was something else about her, something that subtly, undeniably drew the eye, even in this environment of uniform drabness and functional anonymity. On her right forearm, an intricate tattoo was clearly visible, its edges crisp despite the passage of time, a striking design that seemed almost alien in its complexity, a deliberate departure from the standard, often rigid military regulations regarding body art. It wasn't merely a drawing, a casual piece of ink chosen for aesthetics. It depicted the sleek, almost predatory silhouette of a drone, its form not just outlined but intricately interwoven. With faint, almost imperceptible coordinates, a series of seemingly random numbers, and a network of delicate circuit lines, a complex tapestry of ink that hinted at something far deeper than mere aesthetics. It was, in truth, a secret history etched onto her very skin. A coded narrative of a past she could not, dared not speak of, and one she guarded with fierce, silent determination, a truth known only to her, until now. As she navigated her way toward a workstation positioned near the heart of the ongoing operations, her presence, unassuming as it was, began to attract a subtle current of attention, a ripple of low-level curiosity that quickly escalated. A ripple of low chuckles started, a barely audible murmur at first, barely a rustle of sound, but it quickly grew in volume, transforming into a chorus of snickers and stifled guffaws as she approached a cluster of officers gathered near a new, gleaming simulator. This group, mostly junior officers, seemed to possess an endless supply of misplaced confidence and a penchant for casual cruelty. Lieutenant Ron Belsky, a man whose arrogance preceded him like a long, self-important shadow, a man who seemed to thrive on the perceived vulnerability of others, especially those he deemed beneath him in rank or social standing, straightened from his relaxed posture. A sneer, practiced and cutting, a habitual expression of disdain, twisted his features, pulling at the corners of his mouth. His voice, deliberately amplified to carry across the open space, designed to ensure maximum humiliation and to draw attention to his witty observations, cut through the ambient hum of the hangar with jarring force, like a sharp clap in a quiet room. "Look at that, guys," he drawled, his tone dripping with condescension, laced with an almost childish glee at the prospect of an easy target, gesturing dismissively toward Kara's exposed arm, specifically targeting the intricate ink. "Cosplay ink for our little drone jockey. What's next? An action figure collection of her favorite UAVs. Are we decorating our multi-million-dollar unmanned aerial vehicles with glitter and sequins now? Perhaps a cute little bow for the sensor array?" His words landed with a sharp, piercing sting, each syllable a barbed arrow aimed directly at her sense of professionalism, her dedication, and the very core of her identity. It was a blatant attack, designed to belittle, to mock. It elicited another wave of raucous, uninhibited laughter from the officers surrounding him, a chorus of agreement that amplified the sting. The sound grated on Kara, each chortle a small personal affront that seemed to prick at her composure, attacking her passion, her arduous profession, her very being. She could feel their eyes on her, mocking, dismissing, reducing her profound commitment and her years of specialized training to a trivial hobby, a childish pursuit, something utterly unworthy of serious respect in their eyes. The humiliation was a hot, familiar flush across her cheeks, a searing blush that crept up her neck and burned in her ears. A tightening in her chest that made it momentarily difficult to breathe normally, to draw a full, steady breath into her lungs. 1,000 retorts flashed through her mind, sharp and cutting, but she suppressed them all, yet outwardly she remained a fortress of calm, a carefully constructed facade of imperviousness that had taken years to perfect. Her jaw tensed, a barely perceptible clench of muscle beneath her skin, a subtle sign of the inner battle she waged against the rising tide of anger and hurt. But she said nothing. She had learned long ago through countless similar encounters, through years of enduring such casual cruelty and gendered dismissal, that engaging with such blatant mockery only served to fuel its fire, giving it the validation and attention it so desperately craved. It would only encourage them further. Silence, she had discovered, was often the most potent defense, a silent, unyielding shield against the insidious barbs of ignorance and ingrained prejudice. It was a refusal to engage on their terms, to grant them the satisfaction of her reaction. She simply continued her trajectory toward her assigned workstation, her shoulders squared with a quiet defiance, her gaze fixed on the array of tools and components that awaited her, her only refuge. The laughter, however, echoed in the vastness of the hangar, a persistent, unwelcome soundtrack to her morning, a constant abrasive reminder of the unspoken judgment and profound disrespect she faced daily, a constant hum of disdain that was harder to ignore than any direct insult. Just as the snickers began to die down, replaced by the murmurs of resuming, self-satisfied conversation among Ron's cohort, a new sound sliced through the air, a voice, deep, gruff, and infused with an undeniable, inherent authority that commanded immediate and absolute attention. It was a voice that brooked no argument, no hesitation, a sound that cut through the background noise like a surgical blade. "Belsky! Read that string of code aloud." Master Chief Heron stood, a towering figure of experience, his presence formidable, almost daunting. His arms were crossed over his chest, a posture of immense power, and his gaze was as sharp and unyielding as a honed blade, missing nothing. He was a veteran of countless years, his face a roadmap of hard-won wisdom. etched with the lines of countless deployments and the heavy weight of immense responsibility for the welfare of his subordinates. His reputation for no-nonsense integrity, an encyclopedic knowledge of military codes and protocols, and an uncompromising dedication to true merit regardless of rank or background preceded him like a legend. His sudden, unexpected intervention froze Ron in his tracks, mid-chuckle, his face instantly draining of its smug amusement. The sneer vanished from the lieutenant's features, replaced by a look of bewildered surprise, then a growing, deeply uncomfortable unease, a dawning realization that he had not only overstepped, but had done so in the direct sight of a superior officer who demanded respect and competence. He stammered, his usual quick wit and facile retorts utterly deserting him, leaving him grasping for words, his mind a sudden blank. He leaned closer to Kara's forearm, his face contorting in a desperate effort to make sense of the intricate lines that formed the tattoo, his brow furrowed in desperate, futile concentration. But the faint script, designed for a different kind of eye, for a mind tuned to a different frequency of information, for a specialized knowledge he simply did not possess, remained stubbornly, defiantly illegible to him. The lines blurred, the symbols remained obscure, an undecipherable puzzle, mocking his attempt to comprehend. He mumbled, stammered again, his face a picture of flustered embarrassment, the crimson flush returning with renewed intensity, and finally, his shoulders slumping slightly, he had to admit his voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to his earlier booming mockery. I can't make it out, Master Chief. It's just lines. It doesn't make any sense. His arrogance, so palpable moments before, had deflated like a punctured balloon, leaving him exposed, flustered, and utterly, publicly humiliated, his authority undermined. A heavy, oppressive silence descended upon the entire hangar, thick and palpable, a stark and jarring contrast to the earlier cacophony of laughter and casual conversation. Every individual in the vast space seemed to hold their breath. All eyes were now fixed, not on Ron, who now seemed to shrink into himself, desperate to become invisible, but first on Kara, then on Master Chief Heron, a palpable tension hanging in the air, a sense that something significant, something deeply meaningful had just occurred, even if its precise meaning remained shrouded in mystery for most of the onlookers. Kara, sensing the dramatic shift in the atmosphere, the sudden weight of all those curious, scrutinizing gazes, reacted with calm, deliberate precision, a practiced movement honed by years of containing her emotions. She calmly, decisively tugged the sleeve of her uniform further down, covering the tattoo completely. The simple, definitive gesture was a clear declaration that the matter, for her, was closed, at least for now. It was a reclaiming of her personal space, a silent assertion of her boundaries, a quiet defiance that spoke louder than any shout. She then picked up a diagnostic tool from her workstation, her back to the curious and now utterly silent gazes, and resumed her work, her movements precise, unhurried, almost defiant in their quiet determination. She meticulously inspected a small sensor, her fingers moving with a familiar practiced rhythm, shutting out the lingering tension, forcing her mind back to the familiar, comforting logic of circuits and diagnostics, the only place where she truly felt in control. The incident was over, at least outwardly, but the profound undercurrent of tension lingered, a subtle hum beneath the surface of the hangar's busy activities, a testament to the unexpected confrontation that had just unfolded. Everyone understood that something had just shifted, something fundamental in the social dynamics of the hangar, in the unwritten rules of respect and hierarchy, even if they couldn't articulate exactly what it was, or the full implications of Master Chief Heron's powerful, unexpected intervention. The drone technician, usually an anonymous figure blending into the background of the sprawling facility, an almost invisible cog in the larger machine, had, for a fleeting, electrifying moment, become the undeniable focal point of an unexpected drama, her resolute silence speaking volumes where words might have failed, her quiet strength suddenly palpable. The questions that lingered in the air were unspoken, yet intensely present, buzzing in the collective consciousness. What was that tattoo? Why had Master Chief Heron, a man of such immense respect and authority, intervened with such unexpected force and gravity to defend a mere technician? And what did it all mean for Specialist Lin, this quiet woman who carried such an enigma on her skin? The answer remained hidden for now, like the intricate ink beneath her sleeve, a secret waiting for the right moment and the right eyes to be truly seen and understood, to reveal its profound depth. The weight of her past, usually a solitary burden, had just for a moment been brought into the stark public light, leaving a tangible tremor in its wake, hinting at a truth far greater than any of them could yet comprehend. The echoes of the hangar, with its lingering traces of laughter and sharp, dismissive words, slowly, mercifully, receded as Kara Lin found her way to the drone maintenance bay. This space was her sanctuary, a quiet haven where the precise, logical lines of machinery and the comforting scent of clean electronics offered a stark, welcome contrast to the messy, unpredictable uncertainties of human interaction. The air here was cool, faintly metallic, carrying the clean, precise scent of lubricants, ozone, and circuit boards, the very smell of purpose and order. She settled onto a worn industrial-grade stool, its cold metal a familiar anchor beneath her. The harsh fluorescent lights overhead cast a clinical, unforgiving glow on her hands as she began the methodical process of wiping away the lingering streaks of grease from her forearms. Each deliberate stroke of the rag against her skin was more than a simple act of cleaning. It was a ritual, a quiet, almost meditative cleansing, not just of external grime, but of the lingering tension, the faint residue of humiliation from the morning's encounter. As the last of the dark smudges disappeared, her tattoo, previously obscured by her uniform sleeve, emerged in its full, intricate detail. It wasn't just a design, not merely an artistic flourish. It was a complex, living map, a digital blueprint permanently etched into her flesh. Its faint coordinates, its precise circuit lines, now starkly visible, seemed to almost vibrate with unspoken history, a silent testament to a chapter of her life that remained, by necessity, a profound secret. The sight of it, stark and clear beneath the unforgiving light, triggered an unbidden, powerful cascade of memories, pulling her back as if by an invisible thread into a past she carried like a phantom limb, always present, always felt, yet intangible to others. The sterile quiet of the maintenance bay, with its rows of silent drones, dissolved around her, replaced by the searing, almost blinding daylight of a profoundly different memory. It was the scorching, relentless heat of a remote, unforgiving landscape, the air thick with the acrid scent of dust and the distant, rhythmic throb of a powerful, unseen engine. She was younger then, barely out of her initial training, but already possessed a quiet intensity, an innate, almost uncanny aptitude for the silent, high-stakes dance of drone warfare. In that memory, she was a classified UAV pilot, operating under the almost mythical call sign Echo 9. This was during Operation Eclipse Watch, a mission so deeply covert, so thoroughly shrouded in secrecy, that its very existence was little more than a whisper, a rumor confined to the highest, most privileged echelons of command. It was an operation whose details were compartmentalized with an almost paranoid zeal, ensuring that only a handful of individuals truly knew its full scope. Her hand, still resting on her forearm, instinctively traced the precise contours of the drone silhouette on her skin, her finger pausing on a cluster of tiny, almost microscopic dots, coordinates. These were no random artistic flourishes added by a tattoo artist. They were the precise geographical markers, the digital breadcrumbs of a night extraction that had unfolded with chilling precision and breathtaking danger. It was a rescue, almost 4 years ago to the day, a harrowing ordeal that had saved 12 soldiers from certain annihilation, pulling them back from the precipice of doom. The details replayed in her mind with vivid, almost painful clarity, like a black and white film strip flickering to life, the frantic clipped comms chatter, urgent and desperate, filtering through her headset, each word a high-stakes gamble. A reconnaissance team, the Echo Scouts, renowned for their stealth and their unparalleled resilience, had been ambushed, their position compromised, surrounded deep within enemy territory. Their options were dwindling with every passing minute, the clock ticking towards an irreversible end. Artillery fire rained down around them, a deadly, percussive symphony of explosions that vibrated even through her remote console, and the desperate pleas for air support, for extraction, grew increasingly urgent, laced with a raw, primal fear. But conventional air assets were too slow, too vulnerable to the enemy's escalating aggression. The risks of sending in manned aircraft were astronomical, bordering on suicidal. That's where Echo 9 came in. That's where she came in. From a remote, undisclosed location, hundreds of miles away, isolated in a secured bunker, she became their eyes in the sky, their only viable hope. Her fingers, nimble and precise, danced across the control panel, a blur of practiced motion, guiding the advanced UAV through the tumultuous, moonless night. The drone, sleek and silent, a mere shadow against the dark expanse, navigated treacherous, unknown terrain, dodging unseen threats, its sophisticated infrared cameras piercing the absolute darkness, painting a real-time picture of the chaos below. She remembered the gnawing fear, a cold, persistent knot in her stomach, not for her own safety, for she was far removed from the physical danger, but for the lives hanging by a single fraying thread in that distant, hostile landscape. The lives of 12 men and women, trapped, isolated, their fate resting solely on her precision, her calm under unimaginable life or death pressure, the silent, instantaneous decisions that flowed from her mind to her fingertips. The mission parameters had been agonizingly clear, brutally simple in their demand: find them, confirm their exact position, guide the small elite extraction team to them with absolute precision, and do it all without detection. Failure was not an option. Detection meant catastrophe, not just for the trapped soldiers, but for the entire covert operation. Every ripple on the screen, every faint thermal signature, every tremor of the joystick was a calculated risk, a breath held. The tattoo itself was born from the white-hot crucible of that night, with no formal credit, no shining medal to acknowledge her pivotal, almost superhuman role, no public recognition of the impossible feat she had pulled off. The ink became her deeply personal commendation, her silent, unseen Medal of Honor. It was a defiant act, a way to reclaim her truth in a system that sought to erase it. After the mission, the profound relief that had washed over her was overwhelming, a tidal wave of exhaustion and triumph, but it was quickly, insidiously, overshadowed by a pervasive sense of profound isolation. She had done something truly extraordinary, something that had directly, unequivocally saved 12 human lives, yet the world remained utterly unaware. She had returned to the crushing anonymity of her technician role, the vast echoing chasm between her clandestine operational life and her public existence growing wider and deeper with each passing day. The very nature of covert operations dictated absolute silence, a wall of non-disclosure, but that enforced silence had become a heavy, suffocating burden. It was like living two separate lives, one vibrant and heroic, the other mundane and unappreciated. She remembered the debriefing, a sterile, windowless room filled with figures whose faces remained largely unreadable, their expressions masked by a professional detachment that bordered on indifference. The general presiding over her review, a man whose name now escaped her, a face she deliberately pushed from her memory, had looked at her with an air of casual dismissal, his words chilling her to the bone with their profound lack of understanding. "Drone ops don't count as real combat, Lin. You're glorified remote control operators. We appreciate the data, of course, a good intelligence yield, but you don't get medals for sitting in a chair. Real combat involves boots on the ground, bullets flying at you." The casual disregard in his tone, the way he had reduced her near-impossible feat of remote piloting, her split-second decisions that had directly translated to human lives saved, to mere data acquisition, had been a crushing, almost soul-destroying blow. It felt like a physical punch to the gut, a profound betrayal of the very concept of service, of the silent sacrifices made by those who operated beyond the conventional front lines. The sheer injustice of it, the profound lack of recognition, had ignited a quiet, simmering fury within her. She had poured her heart and soul into that mission, had risked her psychological well-being, had lived and breathed every terrifying, adrenaline-fueled moment of that night, and it was all dismissed as less than real, less than worthy. For weeks that dismissive statement had replayed in her mind, an insidious, corrosive loop eating away at her resolve, her sense of purpose. She had reached a breaking point. The temptation to walk away from it all, to sever ties with the military's rigid hierarchies and its often blind adherence to archaic, outdated notions of valor and heroism, had been almost unbearable. What was the point, she had reasoned with herself in countless sleepless nights, if her contributions, however critical, however life-saving, were rendered invisible, deemed unworthy of recognition simply because she wasn't physically on the battlefield, facing a tangible enemy with a rifle in her hand? She seriously considered a life outside, a civilian existence where her highly specialized skills might be valued differently, where the crushing weight of untold stories wouldn't press so heavily upon her soul. She envisioned a life free from the constant need to compartmentalize, to hide the truest parts of herself. But something had held her back, a stubborn, resilient thread of loyalty to a higher ideal, perhaps, or a deep-seated, almost innate belief in the very principles of protection and service she felt had been so profoundly betrayed. And, perhaps, a subconscious, quiet understanding that the mission itself, the sheer, undeniable act of saving those 12 lives, was its own immutable reward, its own intrinsic medal, even if no one else recognized it. The profound impact she had made, the lives she had spared, that was the true validation. Now, as she wiped the last of the grease from her hands, the familiar scent of metallic oil grounding her in the present, her gaze drifted to the small wall-mounted calendar beside her workstation. Tomorrow, a significant date, marked with a red circle. A visiting general was scheduled to oversee a new tech demonstration, a high-profile inspection tour. General Victor Aldrin, the schedule had read, a name that meant little to her, just another high-ranking officer, another face in a long line of visiting dignitaries, another required performance. She had dismissed it, like so many other dates on her calendar, as simply another mundane requirement of her job, another hurdle to navigate. She would do her part, ensure the UAV optics were calibrated to perfection, ensure every system was faultless, and then retreat back into the quiet anonymity she had carefully cultivated. Yet, despite her cynicism, a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker of something akin to hope stirred within her. Not hope for public recognition, not for accolades or promotions, but perhaps for a fleeting moment of genuine understanding. A silent acknowledgement from someone, anyone, that what she did, what she had done, truly mattered, that her unique brand of courage held its own profound weight. The tattoo, now hidden beneath her sleeve once more, felt like a silent prayer, a waiting whisper in the vast, indifferent expanse of the military machine, a story yearning to be heard, if only by the right ears. The past was etched onto her skin, a permanent record of sacrifice and silent triumph. But the future, unknown and unwritten, was just a day away, holding an unexpected destiny she could not yet fathom. She sighed, a soft, almost inaudible sound, and pushed herself off the stool, the faint comforting hum of the bay, her only true companion. The memories receded, but they never truly left her. They were part of her, woven into the very fabric of her being, a silent, powerful testament to a night only the sky had truly witnessed, and a secret she carried with quiet dignity. The arrival of General Victor Aldrin was, as always, an event that seemed to shift the very air currents of the base, creating an almost palpable atmosphere of heightened attention and anticipation. He descended upon the sprawling facility, not with overt fanfare or ostentatious displays, but with the quiet, authoritative precision of a seasoned predator surveying its domain, every movement deliberate, every glance meaningful. His reputation preceded him like a long, deep shadow, a decorated three-star general, renowned not just for his strategic brilliance on a grand scale, but for an uncanny, almost photographic memory for the most minute details, particularly those pertaining to covert operations and their often unseen intricacies. He was a man who understood the unseen battles, the silent wars fought in the shadows, as intimately as he understood the ones waged on conventional front lines with tanks and battalions. His very presence seemed to sharpen every edge, tighten every nerve ending, making even the most seasoned officers stand a little straighter, speak a little more succinctly. Today, his focus was singularly directed towards inspecting the newly installed simulator systems, a critical multi-million-dollar component of modernizing the base's cutting-edge training capabilities for the next generation of drone pilots and intelligence analysts. The midday demonstration was therefore a high-stakes affair, with a dozen key personnel meticulously prepared to present their segments, each hoping to impress the discerning eye of a man who, it was widely known, missed absolutely nothing. Kara Lin was positioned at the absolute heart of this complex, high-pressure demonstration, a pivotal figure without whom the core function of the display could not proceed. Her role was nothing short of crucial. She was in charge of calibrating the UAV optics, a task demanding not just absolute, unwavering focus, but an almost surgical precision in her movements and adjustments. The new generation of drone cameras boasted astonishing resolutions, capabilities unheard of just a few short years prior, transforming blurry thermal images into sharp, identifiable details. Even the slightest misalignment, a micron out of place, could compromise an entire mission's intelligence gathering, rendering hours of flight time utterly useless. She knelt gracefully beside a gleaming state-of-the-art console, its multiple screens flickering with intricate data streams. Her brow was furrowed in intense concentration, a slight crease between her eyebrows indicating the depth of her absorption. Her fingers moved with practiced, almost instinctual dexterity over the sensitive controls, each turn of a dial, each press of a button, a testament to countless hours of training and innate talent. The deep, pervasive hum of the active simulators filled the air around them, a low, resonant thrumming that seemed to vibrate through the very floor beneath her, a constant reminder of the immense power contained within these machines. A tight knot of officers and senior technicians stood nearby, presenting various facets of the new technology to General Aldrin, their voices a respectful murmur, a low drone of technical jargon and projected performance metrics. Kara was acutely aware of the General's imposing presence, not from any direct interaction, for she was too engrossed in her task, but from the subtle ripple of deference that preceded him, the way conversations quieted, postures stiffened, and eyes darted discreetly in his direction. She focused intently on the delicate adjustments, her mind consumed by the minute, almost microscopic calibrations required to achieve that elusive state of perfect optical clarity. Each pixel, each sensor alignment, each flicker of light on the camera's array, every infinitesimal detail mattered with a weight that felt immense. She reached for a specialized fine-tuning tool, a small, intricate wrench crafted for precision adjustments. Her movements were fluid and efficient, honed by repetition. As she leaned forward, her body contorting slightly to access a particularly stubborn panel on the console's underside, her uniform sleeve, which she had meticulously kept pulled down over her forearm, slipped. It was a minuscule, unintentional movement, a fraction of an inch, perhaps barely a centimeter, but in that brightly lit critical environment, it was enough. The intricate ink of her forearm tattoo, the precise outline of the drone silhouette interwoven with its faint, complex circuit lines and coordinate nodes, was momentarily, unmistakably exposed to the harsh, unforgiving fluorescent light of the hangar. She didn't notice it immediately, her mind still entirely absorbed by the delicate electronics, the minute adjustments she was making to bring the optics into perfect focus. The world outside her immediate task had momentarily ceased to exist. General Aldrin, who had been listening with an almost intimidating intensity to a detailed briefing on projected flight path analytics and predictive targeting systems, stopped mid-sentence. His voice, clear and resonant a moment before as he questioned a projection, ceased abruptly, as if a switch had been flicked. The shift was instantaneous, almost jarring in its suddenness. The officers briefing him, caught off guard by his sudden silence, paused, confused, their words dying on their lips. Their gazes, uncertain, followed his. Aldrin's eyes, which moments before had been sharply scanning the complex data projections on a holographic display, had locked onto something else entirely, something far more compelling. He wasn't looking at the high-definition screens, nor at the sophisticated equipment array that cost millions. His gaze was fixed, unblinking, with an almost unnerving intensity on Kara's exposed forearm. A profound stillness settled over him, a statue-like immobility that radiated an almost magnetic intensity. The air in the entire demonstration area seemed to thicken, to hum with an unspoken tension, a silent question mark hanging in the air. He took a single, deliberate step away from the briefing group, his movements slow, measured, almost predatory in its quiet determination. Then another. He approached Kara silently, his footsteps barely audible on the polished floor, a deliberate quietness that commanded immediate and absolute attention without a single uttered word. The officers and technicians presenting to him exchanged nervous, bewildered glances. A few cleared their throats, but no one dared to speak, to break the profound silence that had fallen. The general's silence was more commanding than any shout, more potent than any direct order. He reached Kara's side, his imposing presence casting a sudden, cool shadow over her. She finally looked up, alerted by the abrupt cessation of background chatter, and the unsettling silence of the general's usually robust conversation. Her eyes, still adjusting from the intense focus on the console, met his, and in that instant she saw a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher. Recognition, yes, but also disbelief. A profound, almost visceral personal intensity that was utterly out of place for a casual inspection. It was a gaze that seemed to pierce through her professional facade, straight into the hidden depths of her past, into the very core of her untold story. Then, without taking his eyes off her, General Aldrin's voice, now a low, resonant murmur, filled the profound void of silence. It was not a command, not a question in the traditional sense, but an instruction delivered with an undeniable, unshakable gravity that left no room for dissent, no possibility of refusal. "Everyone," he stated, his voice carrying an inherent authority that cut through any remaining uncertainty, "clear the room, now!" The directive, though softly spoken, resonated through the space with the surprising force of an explosion, scattering the gathered personnel. Officers, who moments before had been confidently detailing projected flight paths and sensor capabilities with professional aplomb, now scrambled, their faces a mixture of confusion, surprise, and immediate, absolute compliance. Technicians, mid-demonstration, abruptly powered down systems with fumbling hands and hurried out, their movements clumsy in their haste, eager to obey the general's unspoken will. The vast room emptied with astonishing speed, leaving only Kara and the general standing amidst the silent, sophisticated machinery, the high-tech equipment now gleaming impersonally in the stark light. The hum of the active simulators seemed to grow louder in the sudden, profound absence of human voices, a strange, almost eerie backdrop to the unfolding, private, intensely personal moment. Aldrin took another step closer, deliberately closing the final distance between them until he was standing directly in front of her. His eyes, still fixed on her tattoo, now held an almost disarming vulnerability, a rare glimpse beneath his usual steely military bearing, a crack in the formidable armor he typically presented to the world. He reached out a gloved hand, his movement slow, deliberate, almost reverent, as if touching something sacred. His index finger, precise and steady, touched a specific point on her forearm, a minuscule coordinate node etched into the drone's silhouette, barely discernible to the casual eye, but clearly distinct to him. The contact was light, barely a feather touch, but it sent an unexpected jolt through Kara, a tremor that ran from her forearm straight through her core. It was a sensation both startling and deeply intimate, an electric current of recognition, a connection to a part of herself she had kept hidden, fiercely guarded for so long. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper, raw with an emotion that belied his usual unshakable exterior, a tremor that revealed the depth of his unspoken burden. "This," he began, his voice thick with unspoken meaning, with the weight of years of silent searching, "this was Delta 42. 4 years ago, that night." His gaze lifted from her arm to meet her eyes, now filled with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat, stealing the air from her lungs. The question was implicit in his gaze, in the tremor in his voice, in the way his eyes seemed to plead for confirmation. He didn't need to finish the sentence. He knew the indelible ink, her hidden code, had spoken volumes. Kara's throat felt tight, constricted by a sudden surge of overwhelming emotion. She swallowed hard, trying to moisten a suddenly parched tongue her own voice caught, trapped within her. The silence stretched between them, pregnant with unspoken history, with the immense, heavy weight of shared knowledge that had been hidden for so long, a secret carried by only a few, and fully known by only 2 in this room. She didn't need to confirm it verbally. Her eyes, steady and unflinching, met his, reflecting the profound understanding that had just passed between them. She nodded once, a single decisive movement of her head, a silent acknowledgement, an admission of a truth that had been locked away for years. The world seemed to narrow to this single point, this shared understanding, a profound connection forged in the crucible of a secret mission. General Aldrin's expression shifted again, transforming from intense inquiry to profound recognition, then something deeper still, a quiet, overwhelming reverence, almost a silent awe. He held her gaze for another long moment, the hum of the simulators filling the void, a low, steady drone that seemed to underscore the gravitas of the moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion that carried immense weight, a solemnity befitting a sacred ritual, he straightened his posture, his shoulders squaring, his back ramrod straight. His right hand, still gloved in crisp white, rose to his temple in a sharp, crisp, formal military salute. It was a salute not of rank, not of protocol, not out of routine, but of deep, intensely personal respect. It was a gesture entirely wordless, yet profoundly eloquent, utterly unexpected in its context. Outside the now silent room, through the large glass panes of the hangar, a few curious officers who had lingered, unable to completely tear themselves away from the unusual scene, watched the unfolding drama. They saw the general, a man of immense power and authority, a figure usually commanding, standing rigidly at attention, his hand raised in a crisp salute to a young, unassuming drone technician, a mere enlisted specialist in the grand scheme of the military. They saw Kara, standing equally still, her face a mask of contained emotion, her posture reflecting a silent, profound dignity. The sight was startling, utterly incomprehensible to them. The entire base, it seemed, had gone still, collectively holding its breath, a vast military complex momentarily paused by an act of unexpected, heartfelt reverence. In that moment, the rigid hierarchy of the military, its intricate rules and unspoken codes, its strict delineation of rank and status, seemed to dissolve, replaced by a raw, unvarnished recognition of something truly extraordinary. The salute, a gesture usually reserved for commanding officers, for fallen heroes, for visiting heads of state, spoke volumes. It was a silent acknowledgement, a powerful, profound validation that transcended rank and protocol, echoing the very core of service and sacrifice. Kara, standing before him, felt the unexpected weight of that salute, not as a burden, but as a silent, powerful affirmation of a truth she had carried, alone, for far too long. The secret she bore on her skin, her silent chronicle of a dangerous night, had finally been seen, not just with eyes, but with genuine understanding, with profound gratitude. The heavy door of the maintenance bay clicked shut, sealing Kara Lynn and General Victor Aldrin in a profound, almost sacred silence. The echoes of the general's salute still resonated in the quiet air, a silent thunder that spoke volumes. It was a gesture that transcended rank and protocol, a moment that had stripped away the layers of military formality, revealing a raw, human connection. Kara stood before him, her heart thrumming a rapid, uneven rhythm against her ribs. The general's gaze, no longer filled with the searing intensity of inquiry, was now softened by an overwhelming wave of something akin to awe and a deeply personal, almost vulnerable gratitude. He lowered his hand from the salute, slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving hers. "Come," he said, his voice now lower, devoid of its public authority, imbued instead with a quiet, almost tender urgency. He gestured towards a small private office tucked away in the corner of the maintenance bay, a space usually reserved for detailed debriefings of high-value equipment. It was a sterile room, functional and Spartan, yet in this moment it felt like the most intimate space on the entire base. As Kara followed him, her mind raced, attempting to process the sudden, seismic shift in her reality. The secret she had guarded so fiercely, etched onto her skin and buried deep within her memory, had been instantly recognized, not by a codebreaker, but by a general. It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream, or perhaps finally waking from one. Aldrin sat at the small metal-top table, indicating the opposite seat for Kara. He leaned forward slightly, his posture open, stripped of his usual military rigidity. The air between them, once thick with unspoken questions, was now charged with an almost unbearable anticipation. He took a deep, steadying breath, his eyes fixed on hers, and the words that followed were a profound unraveling of a story she had only ever known from one side. "My daughter," he began, his voice thick with a raw, almost trembling emotion that betrayed the formidable composure he usually maintained. The revelation hung in the air, a stunning, unexpected weight. Kara's breath hitched. "His daughter?" "She was," he continued, his gaze unwavering, "one of the 12 soldiers saved in that very mission. Delta 42, 4 years ago, to the day, the connection solidified, becoming almost physical." Kara felt a wave of dizziness, a sudden rush of understanding that overwhelmed her. The Echo Scouts, that was the name of the reconnaissance unit. She had known the mission call sign, the objective, the coordinates, but never the names, never the faces. And now, the general, a figure of such immense authority, was telling her that her silent, solitary act of remote heroism had directly impacted his own flesh and blood. He continued, his voice softer now, tinged with a profound gratitude that seemed to shake his very being. We knew a UAV had guided them out. The mission report listed it as Echo 9. The pilot was unknown, a ghost in the system, a black box entry. For 4 years I've tried to find out who flew that drone, who put their life, their mind, their skill on the line from a remote console to save my child and her comrades. Every lead was a dead end. Every inquiry hit a wall of classification. His gaze dropped momentarily to her forearm, then returned to her eyes, filled with an almost reverent awe. "And then I saw your tattoo. Those coordinates, they are burned into my memory." My daughter, she had a map, a crude hand-drawn sketch of their last known location and the extraction point. It matched precisely. I never thought, I never imagined that the map was on you. Kara felt a surge of complex emotions, validation, shock, and a strange, quiet humility. All this time, the dismissive words of that other general, the feeling of her contribution being relegated to an unseen, unappreciated role, had festered within her. But now, here was this man, a general, whose very presence exuded power and authority, revealing a vulnerability that stunned her. He wasn't looking at her as a technician or a drone operator, but as a lifesaver, an unsung hero. Without a word, driven by an instinct to share the full, unvarnished truth, Kara reached for the small, secure console built into the wall of the private office. Her fingers, still steady despite the tremor in her soul, quickly navigated through a series of encrypted files. She accessed a highly classified data packet labeled Eclipse Watch Echo 9 post-op log. With a soft click, a silent black-and-white drone recording flickered to life on the screen. It was the raw, unedited footage of that terrifying night's rescue, still marked with the highest classification. The general leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the monochrome images. The screen displayed the familiar, stark landscape, the desperate figures huddled amidst the shattered debris, the pinpoint accuracy of the drone's overhead guidance, the way it acted as a silent guardian, illuminating the safest path, relaying enemy positions, guiding the small specialized extraction team through the chaos. He watched, transfixed, as the faint outlines of the 12 soldiers moved through the darkness, following the drone's silent lead, step by agonizing step, towards safety. Kara had watched this footage countless times. each viewing a painful yet cathartic replay of her most defining moment. But seeing it through his eyes, seeing the subtle clench of his jaw, the deep emotion that flickered across his face, gave it a new, profound meaning. He saw the precision, the skill, the unwavering focus required to navigate such a desperate situation from hundreds of miles away. He saw the intelligence, the quick thinking, the silent command that Echo 9 had exerted over the battlefield. As the silent footage played, culminating in the successful rendezvous of the Echo Scouts with their extraction team, a profound silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of the console. General Aldrin slowly reached into the inner pocket of his dress uniform. He produced a small, polished metal token. It wasn't a medal, not an official commendation with ribbons and citations. It was a simple circular disc, heavy and cool to the touch, engraved with a single abstract symbol. A stylized, unbroken circle, symbolizing an unbroken chain of command, a completed mission, a life saved. He placed it carefully on the metal-topped table between them, sliding it gently across the surface until it rested directly in front of Kara. "This," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "is given only to those whose contributions were buried, whose acts of profound service were necessarily unrecorded, but whose impact was utterly irreplaceable. It carries no official weight, no public acknowledgement. But among a very, very select few, it is the highest form of respect. It means we know, we remember, and we are forever grateful." Kara looked at the token, then back at the general. Her eyes, which had held so much stoicism, now welled slightly, a fragile glimmer of tears that she quickly blinked away. The dismissive words of the other general, the years of silent frustration, the weight of an unrecognized sacrifice, all of it seemed to dissolve in the warmth of this single, profound gesture. It wasn't a medal, but it was more meaningful than any medal she could have received. It was validation, understanding, and gratitude from a man who truly understood the depth of her contribution, a man whose own life had been irrevocably touched by her actions. As if on cue, or perhaps by some unseen, pre-programmed link, the screen behind them seamlessly synced Kara's tattoo's encoded grid with the Master Mission Board's real-time overlay. The complex symbols, the coordinates, the precise flight paths etched into her skin now appeared, mirroring exactly the highly classified data on the digital map. Every line, every point, every subtle curve matched perfectly, a visual affirmation of the tattoo's true purpose. It wasn't just a personal record, it was a military document written on skin. The general watched, his eyes scanning the matching patterns, a slow, knowing nod affirming the undeniable truth laid bare before them. No further words were exchanged. There was no need. The silence in the room was not empty, but full of understanding, of shared history, of a profound unspoken respect that transcended any need for verbal articulation. The general looked at Kara, his eyes holding a depth of gratitude that words could never convey. Kara looked back, a silent acknowledgement of the connection forged between them, a bond born from a shared hidden past. In that quiet space, amidst the humming machinery, a secret truth had finally come to light, witnessed only by two people and the silent digital echoes of a mission that had changed lives, forever binding them. The weight she had carried for so long had in this moment finally been shared, and in that sharing subtly, powerfully lifted. The revelation within the quiet confines of the maintenance bay rippled outwards, not with the explosive force of a public announcement, but with the quiet, undeniable power of a truth that had finally been set free. News in military bases travels less through formal channels and more through an intricate web of whispers, knowing glances, and subtle shifts in demeanor. The sight of General Aldrin saluting a drone technician, followed by their hushed private conversation, had been too profound, too utterly out of the ordinary, to remain a mere curiosity. The story, fragmented at first, began to coalesce, carried on the invisible currents of curiosity and awe. "Did you hear?" someone would murmur in the mess hall. The general, he saluted Lin, and then, inevitably, the next layer would emerge, something about a classified mission. Echo 9. The sheer improbability of it. The unexpected reverence shown by a 3-star general to an enlisted technician lent the narrative an almost mythical quality. Cara Lin, however, remained largely detached from the burgeoning legend. She returned to her duties with the same quiet meticulousness, but there was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the air around her. The casual dismissiveness that had often accompanied her presence began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious respect, even a quiet curiosity. Officers who once ignored her now offered polite nods. Technicians who had scoffed at her tattoo now glanced at it with an almost deferential fascination, wondering about the hidden story it contained. It was a subtle yet profound change, like the gentle but persistent erosion of a long-standing barrier. Then came the official yet still understated acknowledgement of her true capabilities. Not a medal ceremony, not a promotion to a high-profile role, but something far more fitting for a woman whose contribution had been defined by unseen influence. Cara was quietly assigned to lead a new training session for incoming UAV cadets. This wasn't just a routine instruction. It was a specialized module designed to instill not merely technical proficiency, but a deeper, more nuanced understanding of drone operations, pushing beyond the conventional limits of remote piloting. It was a subtle nod to her unique experience, a tacit recognition that her real combat was indeed a vital and irreplaceable form of warfare. The very nature of the assignment was a testament to Aldrin's influence, a strategic move to integrate lessons learned from the very edge of covert operations into the mainstream curriculum. The first session began with a hushed reverence. The cadets, fresh-faced and eager, sat before her, not with the usual casualness of a standard lecture, but with an almost palpable sense of anticipation. They had heard the whispers, caught glimpses of the evolving narrative around their new instructor. Among them was Cadet Elisa Reyes, a bright, curious young woman whose eyes held a mixture of awe and genuine admiration. Elisa, unlike some of her more cynical peers, possessed an innate respect for hidden truths and unsung heroes. After the initial technical overview, as Cara demonstrated a complex maneuver on the simulator, Elisa approached her during a short break. She spoke softly, almost tentatively, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break a fragile spell. "Did your drone really save the Echo Scouts, ma'am?" The question was direct, yet filled with a profound respect, devoid of any hint of skepticism or mockery. Cara paused, her fingers hovering over the console. She turned to face Elisa, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips. A rare sight. It wasn't a smile of amusement, but of quiet satisfaction, a gentle warmth that conveyed volumes without words. She didn't offer a detailed explanation, didn't boast of her past heroics. Instead, she simply nodded, a confirmation that carried the weight of years of unspoken truth. Then, with a fluid motion, she loaded a new simulator module onto the main display. This wasn't a generic training program. It was a meticulously crafted scenario, built directly from the precise patterns and data encoded in her tattoo. The complex grid of coordinates, the subtle flight paths, the real-time environmental factors, all recreated from the raw data of that fateful night. It was her mission, now transformed into a living, breathing case study, a powerful, immersive learning experience for her cadets. Today, Kara announced, her voice calm but firm, addressing the entire group, we will be dissecting a live combat rescue scenario. Every decision point, every tactical choice you make will have immediate consequences. Pay close attention to the environmental factors and the subtle shifts in enemy movement. This is what really happens when lives hang in the balance. The cadets, including Elisa, leaned forward, their faces a mixture of fascination and intense concentration. The authenticity of the simulation was palpable, a stark contrast to the often abstract training exercises they were used to. They were flying a ghost mission, guided by a living legend. Just as the simulation was about to begin, the door to the training room opened, and Lieutenant Ron Belsky stepped inside. His presence was immediately felt, a ripple of unease passing through the cadets, who remembered his earlier public mockery. He hadn't been invited, but he walked with a newfound purpose, a stark departure from his usual swagger. The arrogance that had been his hallmark was conspicuously absent, replaced by a strangely humbled, almost uncertain demeanor. He stopped directly before the group, his eyes sweeping over the cadets, then settling on Kara. A long moment of silence stretched, punctuated only by the low hum of the simulator. Ron swallowed, visibly uncomfortable, but his resolve held. He took a deep breath, and when he spoke, his voice was lower than usual, stripped of its customary condescension, replaced by a raw, almost painful sincerity. Earlier this morning, he began, his gaze fixed on Kara, but his words meant for the entire room. I mocked Specialist Lin. I trivialized her work, her commitment, and what I now understand was a profound, silent act of courage. He paused, his eyes flickering around the room, meeting the gazes of the cadets, then returning to Kara's steady gaze. I mocked her for what I didn't understand, for what I was too arrogant, too ignorant to even try to comprehend. He cleared his throat, a faint flush coloring his cheeks. That ends now. He wasn't apologizing just to Kara. He was, in essence, apologizing to himself, to his own misplaced pride, and to the very ideals of military service he had inadvertently dishonored. His words, though simple, carried a weight of self-reflection that was entirely uncharacteristic of him. It was a public admission, a rare moment of humility from a man who had always prided himself on his outward bravado. Kara listened, her expression unreadable. She didn't interrupt, didn't gloat, didn't even offer a hint of triumph. When he finished, the silence in the room was thick with unspoken tension, with the echoes of his unexpected confession. The cadets watched, riveted, witnessing an extraordinary moment of public atonement. Finally, Kara met Ron's gaze, her eyes holding neither bitterness nor resentment, but a calm, unwavering firmness that conveyed immense authority. Her voice was steady, clear, resonating with a quiet power that silenced any lingering doubt. "You don't owe me," she said, her words direct and unsparing, yet devoid of personal malice. Her statement wasn't a forgiveness, but a redirection, a higher principle. "You don't owe me an apology, Lieutenant Belsky. My service isn't for personal validation, it's for the mission, it's for the soldiers. But," she continued, her voice gaining a quiet intensity, "you owe the sky your silence. And you owe these cadets your understanding. You owe them the truth of what dedication means, beyond what you can visibly measure or easily comprehend." It was a profound lesson, delivered with an understated power. Her words were not about personal vindication, but about a higher purpose, about the respect due to unseen battles and the quiet courage of those who fought them from afar. It was a lesson in humility, in the true nature of respect, and in the immense responsibility that came with wielding military power, even from a distance. Ron Belsky, for the first time in his career, stood utterly chastened, absorbing her words, the weight of their truth settling upon him. The room remained silent, the cadets absorbing the gravity of the exchange. The simulation, built from Kara's own hidden history, now began to run, a silent, powerful testament to the principles she had just articulated. The air in the room, once thick with tension, was now filled with a new kind of energy, the quiet hum of profound learning. The day, with its cascade of unexpected revelations and profound, almost seismic shifts in her reality, began its graceful, unhurried descent into twilight, painting the vast flat expanse of the tarmac in a breathtaking symphony of bruised oranges, deep purples, and fiery golds. The sky, a boundless canvas of fading light, reflected the complex interwoven tapestry of emotions that had woven through Kara Lynn's very being, a blend of relief, validation, and a quiet, almost tender sense of purpose. As the last lingering rays of the sun stretched long, elongated shadows across the cool, unyielding concrete, Kara walked with a renewed sense of conviction, a quiet resolve that had been forged in the crucible of unexpected recognition, yet also with a profound, almost melancholic introspection, contemplating the journey that had led her to this moment. In her arms, cradled with a reverence usually reserved for something precious and irreplaceable, something salvaged from the very brink of destruction, was the skeletal, battered body of her old Echo 9 drone. It was a mere ghost of its former, pristine self, its once sleek aerodynamic casing now dented, scarred by shrapnel, bearing the unmistakable marks of battles fought and miraculously survived. Components were visibly missing, wires dangled loosely like severed nerves, and the once pristine rotor blades designed for silent, swift flight were twisted, mangled fragments of composite material, beyond simple repair. Yet, even in its broken, wounded state, in her hands, it held the profound promise of rebirth, a powerful, unspoken testament to her enduring, almost symbiotic connection to the machine. That had been her partner in the silent skies, her unwavering ally in the most desperate, terrifying nights of her career, a night that had forever etched itself into her memory and her skin. She carried it not to a professional repair bay, not to a bustling workshop filled with other technicians and the cacophony of shared labor, but to a secluded, almost forgotten corner of a vast, echoing hangar. This was a space she had meticulously identified and claimed as her own, a quiet, almost sacred workshop of solitary devotion. Here, away from the prying eyes and the subtle undercurrents of the base, she would rebuild it alone, piece by painstaking piece, a labor of profound love, meticulous dedication, and deep remembrance. Each tiny scratch on its metallic casing, each twisted piece of internal wiring, each faded serial number, was a stark, visceral reminder. Of that harrowing night it had guided 12 precious souls from the very jaws of death, pulling them back from the precipice of oblivion. The weight of those memories, though heavy, was now infused with the warmth of newfound recognition. It was more than just a drone. It was a living relic, a vessel of indelible memory, a silent witness to courage, and in its meticulous reconstruction, she sought not only to restore its physical form, but to rebuild a piece of her own untold history, to give tangible physical form to the profound validation she had finally received. Her hands, so accustomed to the delicate dance of calibration, the precise application of lubricants and the intricate repair of minute circuits, now moved with a new kind of purpose. They would painstakingly bring this veteran machine back to life, not necessarily for active duty perhaps, for its combat days were likely over, but as a potent symbol, an unwavering testament to a story that had finally found its voice. The drone, like her tattoo, was a living chronicle of survival, of unseen heroism, and of a quiet, relentless dedication that had defied all conventional notions of recognition, now standing as a monument to those quiet victories. As she worked, lost in the rhythm of repair, the sounds of the sprawling military base began to gently fade into the deepening twilight. The distant rumble of transport vehicles, the crisp shouts of drill sergeants echoing from the distant parade grounds, the sharp clang of metal on metal from other workshops, all slowly receded into the background, replaced by the intimate, almost meditative sounds of her own. Focused activity, the soft click of various tools as she selected them, the gentle hum of a small soldering iron warming up, the faint rustle of circuit diagrams, and the whispered murmurs of her own thoughts, a quiet internal monologue of reflection and planning. In the background, casting a soft blue-white glow that somehow managed to pierce the deepening dusk within the vast space, a large state-of-the-art monitor hummed softly. It was a silent, imposing observer in the almost empty hangar, its display shimmering with intricate data and dynamic projections. But this was no ordinary generic training exercise. This was her mission, her very tattoo, brought to vivid digital life, a testament to its profound information, the intricate lines, the precise coordinates, the subtle shifting pathways of the Echo 9's evasive flight during Operation Eclipse Watch. All were meticulously recreated in breathtaking, hyper-realistic detail, serving as the central, most critical mission case study for advanced officer training. Every tactical decision she had made, every split-second evasive maneuver she had executed, every critical moment of her remote piloting during that harrowing rescue was dissected, analyzed, and presented as a paradigm of excellence in drone warfare and remote operational command. The simulation wasn't just a digital recreation, it was a living embodiment of the secret code on her skin, transformed from personal memory into codified doctrine, into a literal blueprint for future generations of military strategists and drone pilots, ensuring its lessons would be etched into the minds of new leaders, officers, perhaps even Lieutenant Belsky himself, now chastened and humbled by the stark reality of her contribution, would sit in gleaming classrooms and hushed debriefing rooms, their gazes fixed intently on the holographic display, studying the very grid that was etched permanently into her flesh. They would analyze the decision points she had made under unimaginable pressure, the calculated risks she had taken, the unparalleled precision required to guide the trapped Echo Scouts to safety through a storm of enemy fire and treacherous terrain. They would learn, not from abstract theory or hypothetical scenarios, but from her silent triumph, from a mission that had been deliberately buried deep within classified files, hidden from public view for years. Her hidden valor, her profound contribution to the lives of those 12 soldiers, and indeed to the strategic capabilities of the military, was now becoming profoundly, undeniably visible. Not through a public parade or a medal pinned to her chest, but through the rigorous foundational process of education, through the very fabric of military training itself. The general's influence, his quiet but absolute authority, was undeniably clear. He wasn't merely recognizing her for a single act, he was strategically ensuring that her legacy became foundational, an intrinsic, indispensable part of the standard curriculum for all future command, pushing the boundaries of what was considered combat and heroism. It was a powerful, enduring form of recognition, transforming her deeply personal sacrifice, her solitary courage, into invaluable, institutional knowledge, ensuring that the lessons learned would resonate for decades to come. guiding countless operations and saving untold lives. This was her true legacy, far more impactful than any personal accolade. As Kara's fingers, stained faintly with grease and metal dust from her reconstruction efforts, brushed almost unconsciously over the faded ink on her forearm, a profound warmth spread through her, radiating outwards from the core of her being. The drone silhouette, once a solitary, misunderstood symbol that invited mockery, now felt deeply connected to something larger than herself, something universally understood, something imbued with a powerful collective meaning. Under the new soft light of the setting sun, a light that seemed to bless the quiet tarmac with a gentle, almost ethereal radiance, a remarkable, almost mystical transformation occurred on her skin. The 12 shimmering coordinate nodes, faint and almost invisible earlier in the harsh glare of day, now began to glow with a soft, ethereal, persistent light, a subtle luminescence that pulsed with a life of its own. It wasn't a trick of the fading light, nor a figment of her overactive imagination, but a silent, almost miraculous manifestation of the mission's profound, life-altering impact. One for each soldier saved. Each glowing point was a life preserved, a family reunited, a destiny irrevocably rewritten because of her precise, unwavering hand. On the remote controls, hundreds of miles away in a silent bunker, performing an act of heroism that defied conventional definition. It was a silent, luminous testament to the human lives she had touched, a visual echo of the profound gratitude that General Aldrin had conveyed, a gratitude that had now permeated the very atmosphere around her, lifting the weight of years of silent burden. The moment was profoundly quiet. A perfect stillness that enveloped her as she looked at her glowing tattoo, then at the skeletal, yet promising drone in her arms, and finally at the distant monitor displaying her mission as a definitive living case study. The circle was complete. The past, once a heavy, unshared burden that weighed her down, was now a shining beacon, a source of quiet strength and undeniable purpose. The untold story, the secret narrative of Echo 9, was now being told, not through a loud voice or a public pronouncement, but through quiet, undeniable demonstration, through silent light, through ingrained knowledge that would shape the future of military operations. The immense weight she had carried for so long, the burden of an unrecognized truth, had, in this singular, profound moment, finally been shared, understood, and in that sharing, subtly, powerfully, lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a quiet, dignified peace. The story ends not with a grand flourish or an explosion of fanfare, but with the quiet, echoing resonance of a letter, a powerful, reflective voiceover from General Aldrin himself. His voice, now calm and deeply thoughtful, carried the accumulated wisdom of a long distinguished career, the gravitas of a man who had seen the true, multifaceted nature of heroism, and who now understood with absolute clarity that the most impactful acts were often those performed in silence, far from the public eye. Some marks fade. This is the natural order of things, a quiet, undeniable truth of human existence and the passage of time. Time, with its relentless, unforgiving march and the pervasive forces of neglect and indifference, possess an insidious power to diminish even the sharpest, most indelible memories, blurring the once vivid lines of past experiences into indistinct outlines. The wounds, whether they are physical scars etched upon the body or deep, unseen emotional ones, eventually heal, yes, but they often leave behind phantom pains or residual sensations, and the scars themselves whiten and fade over years, becoming less noticeable, less defining. The moments of intense struggle, of desperate conflict, of harrowing survival, slowly recede into the soft, indistinct haze of the past, becoming whispers rather than shouts. Stories untold, or perhaps only whispered in the darkest, most secluded corners, are quickly, mercilessly forgotten, swallowed whole by the overwhelming demands of the present, lost to the relentless currents of human attention and the constant influx of new information. They become faint whispers, ephemeral as smoke, easily dismissed, gradually vanishing into the background noise of history, their profound significance and the lessons they contain utterly lost to those who did not bear witness to them firsthand. In the vast, impersonal, often bureaucratic machinery of the military, a system designed for order and efficiency on a grand scale, it is tragically easy for individual acts of profound courage and unparalleled skill to be absorbed, assimilated, and then, inadvertently, erased, becoming mere data points, cold statistics in a sprawling, anonymous database, stripped bare of the human face, devoid of the personal impact, the raw emotion, and the profound heroism that truly defines them. The very nature of covert operations, by its fundamental design, by its absolute necessity for secrecy and compartmentalization, ensures that most of its triumphs and indeed its profound tragedies remain eternally out of sight, out of mind for the wider world, known only to a select insulated few who bear the quiet, heavy burden of those essential, untold secrets. For a very long time, the compelling tale of Echo 9, a mission known by a specific call sign and a series of coordinates, was one such fading mark, a classified entry, a mere whisper in the wind, a digital ghost in the machine that, for all its life-saving transformative impact, risked being utterly lost to the relentless currents of time and the institutional imperative for absolute secrecy. It was a memory held by a precious few, slowly eroding, slowly losing its definition and its true meaning. Others become doctrine. These are the rare, profound truths that transcend individual experience, that refuse stubbornly and powerfully to be forgotten, to be diminished by time or indifference. These are the invaluable lessons forged in the white-hot crucible of real-world application, validated beyond any doubt by the undeniable, life-altering outcome of saved lives and achieved impossible objectives. They are the core principles, the immutable tenets, that are not merely remembered as historical facts or anecdotes, but are actively, rigorously taught, integrated into the very fiber of how we train, how we think, how we operate, how we engage with the complexities of modern warfare and its evolving challenges. They become the foundational tenets of our strategic thought, the core wisdom meticulously passed down from one generation of soldiers, of strategists, of operators to the next, ensuring continuity and growth. Such marks are etched not just into the fragile expanse of human memory, but into the very enduring fabric of our procedures, our protocols, our philosophy of warfare, becoming the very blueprint for future action, guiding every decision. They reshape how we understand courage in its myriad, often unseen forms, how we define effectiveness in the most critical, high-stakes moments, how we value the indispensable contributions of every single individual, regardless of their position on a traditional battlefield or their proximity to direct conflict. A powerful unseen act once casually dismissed, once deemed not real combat, can quietly, inexorably redefine the very parameters of heroism and service, expanding our understanding of what it truly means to defend and protect. It can show us with undeniable clarity that valor comes in many forms, some of which do not require a rifle in hand or a physical presence on the scorching front lines, but rather an unparalleled precision, an unwavering calm under immense pressure, and a profound, distant mastery of complex systems and remote command. The silent ballet of a drone guided by a singular, courageous mind can be as utterly pivotal, as profoundly life-saving as any conventional engagement fought with boots on the ground and bullets flying. The lessons from that night once held in the secret confines of a young pilot's memory and etched onto her very skin, as a private chronicle, have now been meticulously distilled, rigorously codified, and beautifully woven into the very doctrine of modern combat. They are studied, debated, and applied with new understanding, ensuring that the quiet, unwavering courage of Echo 9 will resonate far beyond the confines of a single, isolated mission, shaping the future of unseen warfare and irrevocably redefining what it truly means to serve, to sacrifice, to save lives in the complex tapestry of global security. The hidden mark, once a source of quiet burden, a lonely secret, has become a guiding light, a principle that endures, shaping the very way we wage our silent wars, a testament to the powerful, undeniable fact that some truths once revealed are potent enough to become eternal, never to fade. And so, the quiet strength of Cara Lynn, the untold story of Echo 9, moves from the shadows into the light, etched not just on her skin, but into the very doctrine of modern service. Her courage, once unseen, now inspires a new generation, proving that true heroism transcends the battlefield and often finds its voice in the most unexpected places. It's a powerful reminder that some of the greatest impacts are made by those who operate in silence, their contributions profound yet hidden. Their marks, though seemingly personal, become universal lessons guiding us forward. We hope this journey into a hidden truth has resonated with you, sparking a new appreciation for the silent heroes among us. Here at Veteran Biker, we believe in bringing these powerful, often overlooked stories to life, celebrating the courage and dedication that truly shape our world. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Veteran Biker channel to join our community and never miss another incredible tale. Your support helps us continue to share these vital narratives. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. What part of Cara's story resonated with you the most? Share your comments below. And be sure to check out the other compelling stories appearing on your screen now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.